The distress signal came from deep void where no traffic lanes ran and no sane trader went. It was faint, full of static like a dying whisper, yet it carried a word that froze every human ear that heard it. Help the signal repeated in hundreds of languages, none of them human, and yet the tone carried the same thing: terror. The Terran patrol ship Starborn Echo was nearest to the coordinates. Its commander, Captain Reeve, was a quiet man whose scars told stories no one dared ask about. When the signal reached his bridge, he stared at it in silence before giving a simple order: set a course. The crew moved fast. They were veterans of quiet wars, the kind history pretended never happened. The ship glided into the ghost sector where the stars looked dimmer, where wrecks floated like dead giants. They found a small alien rescue pod, half-burnt, spinning slow. No life signs until the scanners caught a pulse weak. But there the pod was brought aboard. The airlock opened, and from the smoke and coolant mist, they pulled a small creature, trembling, pale skin, faintly blue eyes filled with tears and fear. She spoke in broken translation. Her name was Lyra. She was from a world none of them had ever heard of. She kept saying the same thing again and again: they are coming, the Empire, they are hunting everyone who helped us. Captain Reeve crouched beside her. He asked softly, "Who is they?" Lyra shook her head as if the word itself would kill her. "The ones who erased the first humans." The bridge went silent at those words. Reeve exchanged glances with his first officer. The myth of the First War was something even among humans only whispered, a war so brutal it was wiped from galactic records. The idea that something could erase humanity from memory and life was terrifying. Reeve asked, "Where are they now?" and Lyra said, "Everywhere." Scanners flickered. Something huge was moving at the edge of the system. Reeve gave the command to cloak the Starborn Echo, slid into silence, watching as Imperial destroyers entered the zone, hunting patterns wide, precise, ruthless. The same formation used when exterminating rebel worlds. The girl's pod had been bait. Reeve realized, but too late to throw her back into the void. He called engineering. "Power down everything that breathes and wait." They drifted in the dark for hours while Imperial ships swept by, scanning and moving on. Finally, they vanished into warp trails, leaving cold vacuum behind. Only then did Reeve order life support back. Up in med bay, Lyra woke crying. She kept repeating, "They killed my people. They said anyone who speaks the name of humans will be destroyed." Reeve looked at her and felt something cold inside his chest. Not fear, but anger. "Slow, steady, deep," he told her. "You are safe now," and she whispered, "No one is safe." "They are coming for you too," they said. "The Starborn are forbidden." They said the last time humans rose, the galaxy burned. Reeve stood looking through the med bay window into the stars, thinking of that old forbidden phrase, "Humanity once was the nightmare of the galaxy." He turned and called the bridge, "Bring us about. We are heading to Haven 9. His officer asked, "Sir, the girl might be leading them to us," and Reeve replied, "Then we will find out. What kind of bait bleeds and what kind bites back?" Engines hummed softly. The ship left the wrecks behind, the girl asleep under watch and the crew uneasy. Not because of her, but because of what her words meant. If the Empire still remembered the first human war, then the peace humanity had built was only smoke hiding the fire beneath. Reeve knew one thing, as the stars shifted in front of him. If the Starborn were truly the deadliest beings in the galaxy, then perhaps it was time the galaxy remembered. Why, and far behind them among the drifting wrecks, a single Imperial drone blinked red as it sent a silent message to its masters. The Starborn have answered. The hidden world called Haven 9 floated in the shadows of a dying sun, its light weak, but warm enough for small colonies that refused to bow to the Empire here. Humans had built sanctuaries not of power, but of promise, where refugees from crushed worlds could rebuild and live under Terran protection. Without fear, the Starborn Echo entered orbit and broadcast its arrival code, and within minutes the station lights flared to life. Welcoming them home, Captain Reeve stood at the viewing deck as the docking clamps locked the ship, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to exhale. Lyra stood beside him, wrapped in a gray recovery cloak. She looked around the great station with wide eyes. There were hundreds of species walking together, sharing markets and repair docks without guards or slaves. She whispered that she had never seen a place where aliens were not afraid of humans. Reeve almost smiled and told her that Haven 9 was a dream made of scars. Everyone here had lost something to the Empire, including humans themselves. In the command hall, Governor Alaric waited, tall, broad, and aged like steel left in rain. He greeted Reeve with a quiet nod, then turned his sharp gaze to the girl when she spoke of her people's extinction. He listened without interrupting when she spoke of the Empire hunting all, whoever mentioned the first humans. His expression hardened. He asked her what proof she had, and she trembled and pulled out a thin crystal shard hidden in her cloak. She said it was part of an ancient treaty sealed in human code from the age of the First War, and that the Empire wanted it destroyed. Reeve and Alaric exchanged a glance, for they both knew that human code could not be forged. Later in private, Reeve asked the governor if he believed her. Alaric said belief does not matter. If the Empire thinks she is worth killing worlds for, then she is worth protecting. But he also warned Reeve that Haven 9 was under surveillance. He had intercepted strange signals near the outer rings of the system. Reeve walked back to his ship, thinking about the quiet hum in the comm lines they had ignored during approach in the ship's mess. The crew sat in silence, watching a faint glow on the holographic map. Every few minutes, a point blinked and vanished. The signal pattern was too regular. To be natural, Reeve ordered a deep scan of the region. The sensors returned ghost echoes, as if something large and cloaked was moving between the moons. Then all signals cut at once. It felt like a breath held too long. Lyra sensed it first before the alarms even began. She said, "They have found us," her voice small but certain. Seconds later, a transmission filled the room. Harsh, mechanical, and cold. A voice speaking the Imperial tongue. "Surrender the fugitive, and the Terran ship, or the station will be erased." There was no reply from Reeve, only the silence of a man remembering a promise. The governor contacted him, saying that panic was rising. Civilians were preparing to evacuate, and several small defense craft were ready to launch. Reeve told him to hold position and keep engines cold. He would buy them time. Alaric looked at him through the screen and said, "This will bring war." And Reeve answered, "War. Never left it, only slept. In the medbay." Lyra tried to apologize, saying she never meant for this to happen, that she thought humans were legends and that no one would answer her call. Reeve told her legends are only stories until someone decides to make them true again. He left her there, staring at her trembling hands, while he walked to the bridge where the crew waited, uncertain but ready. The Starborn Echo rose from dock, silent and steady, moving toward the edge of the system where the Imperial signal had come from. Reeve ordered long-range scans and watched as the image formed one by one until the shape of an Imperial ring appeared around the system. Stealth ships, destroyers, cruisers, all waiting patient like wolves around a wounded animal. He realized the Empire had been preparing for this for months, maybe years. They had baited the distress signal. They wanted proof that humanity would still answer a cry for help. Now they had it, and they were closing the cage. Reeve stared at the formation on the display and felt the weight of countless forgotten wars. Pressing on his chest, he whispered a single word to himself. "Starborn." The order came quietly to his crew. "Initiate silent protocol. Prepare all defense grids and send word to the Titan." He knew they could not fight yet, but they could awaken something, older, something that remembered what it meant to be feared as the ship turned away from the trap. Reeve made a final log entry. They called for help, and we heard them now. The galaxy will remember why that was a mistake. The Titan slept within a field of frozen wreckage orbiting a nameless world. Her hull scarred from battles fought before most of the crew were even born. Engines cold for decades, only the faint blue lines of her dormant reactor, giving her shape in the dark. The Starborn Echo approached slowly, lights dim, weapons silent. Captain Reeve looked at the giant shadow before him with something close to reverence. It was said that Titans were not built. They were born, built from fragments of ships that had survived the first human war, each carrying ghosts of past battles, the kind of machines that remembered. When they docked, the airlocks hissed with age. The crew stepped into silence, their footsteps echoing through halls covered in dust and frost. Reeve walked ahead, with his first officer, Lieutenant Mara, scanning for life signs. None. The ship's AI core was dark, its voice gone decades ago. He stopped before the command throne, a raised platform of steel and memory. He reached out and placed his hand on the console, whispering, "Awaken, Starborn Titan." At first nothing happened, then the lights flickered once, twice, a pulse spread through the floor like a heartbeat. A voice filled the bridge. Deep, ancient, calm identity confirmed Starborn Titan waking. Captain Reeve Code Alpha, recognized. Welcome. Back. The sound carried both strength and sadness, as if the ship itself had been waiting to be remembered. Lyra followed close behind, wrapped in a service jacket far too big for her. She touched one of the glowing walls and flinched when faint lines of human script rippled across the metal. The AI spoke again, identifying her as unknown species with Terran code interference. The words puzzled Reeve until she raised the crystal shard from her cloak. The wall glowed brighter, the shard pulsing. Like a heart, the ship said. Origin confirmed. Human treaty code fragment. The commander's eyes narrowed. He asked, "Where did you find that?" And Lyra said, "It was buried under the ruins of my capital city beneath a monument to the lost sun. My people never knew what it was." Reeve ordered engineering to bring power online and restore systems within hours. Ancient generators roared back to life, and the Titan's hull began to glow with faint blue veins. Her name appeared across the forward display. TSS Vengeance, a name spoken in fear across old war records. The crew of the Echo began transferring aboard, preparing the ship for combat. Mara ran diagnostics and reported that the weapon systems were stable, though limited, and that the reactor could sustain high power for only a short duration. The ship was old, but angry. Reeve smiled for the first time in years. In the main chamber, Lyra spoke with the Titan's AI, the voice of the ship calling itself Solace. It recognized her presence and allowed her to interface through the shard, showing her fragments of history. Entire wars burned into code. She saw images of humanity standing alone against empires older than stars, fighting until galaxies wept. She saw why the universe feared them, not for their cruelty but for their refusal to surrender. When she asked why those records were hidden, Solace replied, "Because the galaxy forgot." But the Starborn remember. As the Titan stirred to life, sensors reached out into the void and caught movement. Imperial ships closing fast. They were forming a net around the debris field. Reeve ordered all systems to run silent, only passive scans. He knew they would be found soon. The girl came to him, saying the AI showed her a path through the debris, a hidden tunnel left by the original battlefield. It could hide their escape. He hesitated, but she said, "If we wait, they will trap us here forever." He nodded and gave the order, "Prepare for silent drift." As they moved, the ship powered down every light. Even the stars seemed to dim around them. Imperial signals passed close, and one probe almost brushed their hull before moving away. The crew held their breath for an eternity. Finally, the silence broke when Mara whispered, "We are clear." But Reeve did not relax. He knew someone had betrayed them. Haven 9's coordinates were in Imperial hands long before they arrived. Back on the station, Governor Alaric stood before a holomap, his aides reporting that unknown signals had been detected. Near the moons, one technician spoke the word no one wanted to hear. Spies. Alaric realized too late that the Empire had already infiltrated their networks. His final message to Reeve before the comms were cut was simple. "You were right. The wolf was already inside." The Titan emerged from the debris field, her massive form now fully awake. Lyra watched from the observation deck as lights ran down her hull like veins of molten silver. She asked Reeve, "What now?" and he answered, "Now we remind them why the dark learned to fear the light far beyond the horizon." The Imperial fleet turned their sensors toward the awakening glow, and the void itself seemed to hold its breath. The Empire envoy appeared across every communication screen in Haven 9, and on the bridge of the Titan, his image tall and shining in golden armor, his voice calm but heavy with threat. He spoke the words that echoed through every corridor of the station: "Surrender the fugitive and the Terran ships, or face erasure." From every map and every memory, his words were not shouted. They were delivered with the quiet certainty of someone who had seen many worlds burn and never doubted the outcome. Captain Reeve listened without moving, standing in the dim light of the Titan's command throne. He waited until the envoy finished, then spoke with the tone of cold iron. "We do not surrender those who ask for help. Tell your masters the Starborn have heard the cry." The envoy's lips curled slightly, as if amused. He said, "Humanity always believed it could defy the inevitable. But the Empire does not negotiate with myths. Your kind should have stayed buried." Then his transmission ended, leaving static in the air. Reeve turned to his crew and ordered power to. Half the Titan began silent drills testing ancient systems and weapons in the shadows, while the people of Haven 9 prepared for the worst. Evacuation ships began to load families in haste, while small fighters took position near the orbital rings. The tension was thick enough to feel like gravity itself, pressing on every chest in the command center of the station. Governor Alaric coordinated evacuation routes with precision, his old voice calm even as panic spread through the corridor's children, crying alarms echoing and refugees clutching the little they owned. He sent message after message to nearby colonies, but no reply came. The Empire had cut the channels, isolating them completely when Reeve contacted him through encrypted link. Alaric asked how long they had before the Empire struck. Reeve answered not long enough. Lyra walked through the Titan's halls watching humans work without chaos. Everyone moved with purpose even as they prepared for a battle no one expected to win. Felt the strange mix of peace and dread that hung in the air. Solace, the ship's AI, spoke to her through soft lights along the walls. It said the Starborn do not fight for conquest. They fight so others will not have to. She asked if that was why. Humanity had vanished from the stars and the AI answered no. Humanity did not vanish, it chose silence until the galaxy learned to listen again. Reeve met Lyra in the tactical room where holographic projections of the Empire fleet flickered red and gold. He asked her to explain more about the shard she carried. She said it was part of something older, a treaty between the first human alliance and the ancient empires. It promised that no power would ever erase a species from history, and that, the moment that law was broken, the humans would return. Reeve looked at the crystal glowing faintly in her hand, and felt the truth in it. The AI confirmed its authenticity, saying its code matched the first Terran seals. Reeve realized the Empire's fear was not of human weapons but of human promises. Hours passed as they prepared ships-fueled shields-aligned fighters hidden behind asteroids. Still the Empire waited outside the system. A predator that enjoyed the fear before the strike. The envoy's voice returned one last time, giving a final deadline. 1 hour to decide. Reeve walked to the observation deck where stars shimmered cold and distant. He remembered the wars that ended before his birth, when Earth itself chose peace by isolation, and he wondered if they were about to destroy that peace forever. Mara joined him, saying, "If we fire first, history will call us monsters," and he replied, "History already did long ago." As the hour neared, Reeve ordered all civilians to be sent toward the outer rim and hidden carriers disguised as debris fields. The Titan and the Echo would stay behind to draw the attack. Lyra insisted on staying, saying the shard must not fall into enemy hands. He wanted to refuse, but Solace spoke, saying the shard is bound to her. She must remain within the Titan for it to function. Reeve accepted her courage and told her stay near the core and trust your instincts. When the final minute came, the stars shifted as enemy formations moved. The Imperial Armada unfolded across the system horizon, filling the black with lines of gold fire. Thousands of ships forming rings upon rings around Haven 9. The envoy's voice returned softer. This time it is a pity humans never learn goodbye, and the signal died. Reeve's voice carried through every speaker across Haven 9. This is Captain Reeve of the Terran Starborn fleet. To every species, every soul on this station, know this. We fight not for power, but for memory. No one who asks for help dies alone. He turned to his crew, gave a single nod and said, "Shields up, weapons, hold, wait for my mark." In that moment, the Titan rose like an old god from sleep, her engines lighting the dark, her shadow covering the fragile station below, and in the silence, before the first shot, every heart on Haven 9 whispered a prayer that the myths were true, and that the deadliest beings in the galaxy still remembered how to fight. The first strike came without warning, a flash across the void as the Empire fleet unleashed its fire. Upon Haven 9, the sky filled with burning trails of plasma and light so bright that even the night side of the planet turned white. The Titan absorbed the first wave with her shields trembling like a living thing, each impact shaking the ancient hull. Captain Reeve stood firm at the command throne, his eyes fixed on the expanding storm outside. The crew moved in silence, hands flying over consoles as the Titan's weapon systems came alive, the sound of reactors humming through the ship like The heartbeat of a waking giant Governor Alaric watched from the surface command deck as the shields of the station flared blue under the bombardment. Every impact felt like thunder shaking the ground, yet he refused to leave his post shouting orders. To keep evacuation ships steady, the refugees cried in the docking bays while loaders and engineers worked without rest. Lyra stood in the Titan's core chamber, gripping the crystal shard that now pulsed faster with every impact solace. The ship's AI spoke softly to her. "The shard is reacting to the human command codes. It is remembering something old," she asked. "What it means," and the AI answered. "It means the Starborn are about to wake fully." Outside in the dark, the Empire's destroyers moved closer, like wolves circling prey, their heavy cannons glowing red. Preparing another strike, Reeve ordered all energy rerouted to forward shields and to hold fire. He knew the Titan could destroy dozens of ships with one volley, but showing that power too early would reveal their position. The smaller Terran ships, the Echo among them, darted through debris, weaving between explosions, protecting the evacuation convoys. As they launched one by one, Mara reported that 3 transports had cleared the zone, but a 4th was trapped behind falling wreckage. Reeve ordered the Titan to shift position, its massive hull moving like a shadow to shield the smaller ships the next barrage hit directly. But the Titan held inside engineering alarms, screamed as conduits burst under the stress. Engineers worked with scorched hands, sealing leaks with emergency welders. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Still, they did not stop. Reeve's voice came through every speaker, steady, calm, reminding them that the galaxy had forgotten what human courage looked like, and that they would remember today. In the evacuation bay, a young technician named Enar faced the captured Imperial spy, the one who had betrayed Haven. Enar wanted to kill him, but Lyra entered before he could act. She looked at the prisoner with eyes full of sorrow. "Not hate," she said. "You tried to save yourself, but now you can save everyone." She handed him the shard's secondary code, asking if he could use his Imperial access. To open the enemy's targeting net. For a few seconds he hesitated, tears in his eyes, and finally nodded, saying it would cost him his life. She only said then, "Make it worth it." Moments later, the Imperial fire paused for a breath as their network glitched. The Titan sensors caught the flicker. Reeve recognized the pattern and shouted. Now every cannon on the Titan roared at once, lines of white fire cutting through the darkness. Entire enemy wings vanished in bursts of light. The Empire fleet staggered, confused, their formation cracking for the first time. But victory came at a price. The spy had done his part, and the last transmission from Haven 9 carried only static. The battle did not stop. The Empire regrouped faster than expected, sending forward their dreadnoughts, huge ships shaped like daggers built to crack planetary shields. Reeve watched the readings and saw the unmistakable energy signature of a planet breaker, a weapon meant to destroy worlds, not ships it moved into. Position, charging its core bright enough to outshine the sun. Mara whispered that they had no defense against such power. Reeve looked at the image of Haven 9 still evacuating its last transports and said, "We hold until they are clear." The Titan moved, between the planet and the weapon, her shields flaring under constant fire. The hull glowing from the heat. The AI reported rising temperatures across every deck and failing coolant systems still. Reeve stood unmoving, hands gripping the command rails. Every hit felt like the breath of death itself, and yet none of the crew broke. They were Starborn, and they remembered their oath to stand when no one else would. Finally, the last transport broke orbit. Alaric's voice came faintly through static, saying, "We are clear." Captain Reeve closed his eyes and gave the command, "Disengage shield modulation and redirect all power to the forward cannons. If this is where it ends, then let it end. Bright." The crew obeyed without question. The Titan's main guns charged brighter than ever before, and as the enemy planet breaker began to glow, the two forces faced each other across the void. Silent, deadly, ancient in that moment, humanity and the Empire stared into the same abyss and prepared to decide who would still exist when the light faded. The stars seemed to hold their breath as the Empire's planet breaker reached full charge, its surface burning with streams of molten light so intense that even the nearby ships began to warp from the radiation. The Titan's sensors screamed warnings every second. Solace, the ship's AI, whispered to Captain Reeve that their shields could hold for maybe one more direct hit before collapsing. Still, Reeve stood calm, his eyes fixed on the monstrous weapon that had destroyed countless worlds before he ordered the crew to prepare the Starborn Protocol, a command that had not been used in centuries and whose very existence was thought to be myth. The bridge crew froze for a moment, realizing what it meant, but no one objected across the void. Imperial captains laughed in their sealed bridges, believing victory was moments away. They could already imagine. Haven 9 turned to dust, the name of humanity erased once again from history. But deep, inside the Titan, something ancient stirred. Solace began unlocking subsystems' long-forgotten codes, cascading down the walls in red light. The engines shifted from fusion drive to something older, darker. A pulse drive designed not for travel, but for war. Mara stared at the readings in disbelief, saying, "This is impossible." And Reeve answered, "Nothing is impossible for those who built it." First, Lyra stood inside the core chamber, holding the shard which now blazed like a star in her hands. She felt the hum of voices, not words but memories. The ghosts of human captains and soldiers bound into the ship's data. She asked Solace what it was showing her, and the AI said, "You are seeing the first war. Every maneuver, every sacrifice stored here, for the day humanity must fight again." She closed her eyes as visions of ancient fleets filled her mind. Thousands of Terran ships moving like one body, their unity terrifying and beautiful. Solace said, "Your kind calls us monsters. But the truth is, we were protectors. We fought because no one else would, on the bridge." Mara shouted that the planet breaker was locking on Haven 9. The energy spike too large to counter with standard shields. Reeve ordered the Titan to intercept course full burn. The massive ship turned slowly, its old engines screaming as they reached limits. No system was meant to reach. The crew held onto consoles as gravity shifted. Reeve's voice cut through the chaos. Steady and cold, the Starborn stand between death and the innocent fire when ready. The first volley from the Titan tore through the void beams of white energy, carving through two Imperial cruisers that strayed too close. The shockwave rippled across the enemy formation, throwing their alignment into chaos. The Empire tried to regroup, but Solace and Lyra, working together, found a pattern in their movements, an old tactic from the First War called the Ghost Weave, using micro-jumps and false signal echoes. The Titan made it seem as if multiple ships were attacking at once. Enemy captains fired at shadows while the real Titan struck from behind her cannons, ripping through command ships like paper. Reeve could see the Empire lines collapsing, but he knew it would not last. The planet breaker continued charging, the light growing until it hurt to look at Solace. Warned that the weapon was about to fire. The only option left was to channel the Titan's core directly through the forward rails to create a focused counterburst. Mara protested, saying it would tear the ship apart, but Reeve said, "Then, we make sure the enemy goes with us." Meanwhile, in the distance, space folded like rippling glass, and from that distortion emerged shapes massive and silent. Terran fleets long hidden in deep hibernation, waking as the protocol signal reached them. One by one they appeared, dreadnoughts, carriers, cruisers, all bearing the insignia of the Starborn flame. The galaxy itself seemed to shiver as humanity returned from the dark. The Empire comm channels filled with confusion as thousands of human signatures lit up across the system. Solace announced reinforcements, confirmed the Starborn have answered. The Titan opened her final energy lines, connecting her core directly to the weapon rails. The ship trembled, every deck shaking, every light flickering. Lyra placed the shard into the main console. It fused seamlessly, sending a surge of energy through every circuit. Solace said, "Link complete, all systems locked." Captain Reeve gave his last command, fire. The blast that followed was not light, it was fury condensed into a single line. The beam cut through the planet breaker's core, meeting. Its charge head-on. Space itself seemed to ripple, and the stars vanished for a heartbeat. The explosion was silent, but the shockwave rippled across half the system, tearing ships apart and shattering the Empire's formation. When the light faded, the planet breaker was gone, reduced to drifting fragments glowing like embers in the dark. The Titan, however, was wounded, her hull cracked, reactors overloading, but she was still standing. Reeve looked at the damage reports and said to his crew, "We are not done yet. Tell the fleet to advance, take back the sky for those who believed no one would come. The bridge crew cheered even as systems failed around them. The Starborn had returned, and every corner of the galaxy would soon know that the myth of humanity's silence had ended forever. The void was filled with wreckage and silence, the kind of silence that comes after storms, too great for words. Haven 9 still burned on one horizon. Its shields cracked, its cities scarred, but it was alive, and that meant the Titan's sacrifice had not been in vain. The Empire's once endless armada now floated in pieces, drifting without command. The survivors scattered, fleeing in panic as human fleets emerged from folds of light one after another, ancient ships awakening from forgotten watchposts across the stars, each bearing the insignia of the Starborn flame. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was seeing what it had long tried: to erase the power of humanity. United Captain Reeve stood on the bridge of the Titan, surrounded by sparks and smoke. The air tasted of burnt circuits and metal. Mara's hands were red from work, keeping power steady while Solace's voice flickered in and out through the intercom systems, failing one after another. The ship was dying, but Reeve's eyes were fixed on the fading light of the Empire flagship he gave the order to pursue. But Solace interrupted him, her voice weaker now, saying, "Captain, I have calculated a terminal instability within our core. The blast used 98% of containment. There is no pursuit left, only survival." He paused, listening to the tremor in her tone, and then asked if the shard could stabilize it. For a while, Solace said yes, but at a cost. Lyra would not survive the energy. Backlash. Lyra was already in the core chamber, as if she knew her part before it was spoken. Her small figure surrounded by glowing conduits, she touched the surface of the crystal, which now floated weightless, pulsing with both her heartbeat and the Titan. She spoke softly. "Solace, tell him not to come here. He has done enough." Solace hesitated, then relayed the message to Reeve. His face tightened, but he said nothing. He simply turned toward the viewport, where the dawn light from Haven's sun began to creep across the ruined system. The human fleet moved swiftly, rescuing survivors, towing broken ships, setting up defense lines across the wreckage. Governor Alaric's final broadcast came through, voice trembling with exhaustion, but filled with gratitude, saying to the Starborn, and to all who answered the cry, "We owe you our world. We owe you our hope." Reeve listened in silence, then replied, "Only tell your people to live well. That is payment enough." Inside the core chamber, the energy grew unbearable, light streaming like liquid gold. Lyra stood calm, her hands raised, as the shard disintegrated into threads of energy that wove through the walls. Solace said, "Your body cannot contain this." She smiled faintly and answered, "I am not trying to contain it. I am giving it back." The light surrounded her, and the AI whispered something soft. "Thank you, child of memory." When the light faded, she was gone, and the Titan's core stabilized one last time. The crew stood in silence as Solace's voice returned, clear but faint. "The storm has passed." Captain Reeve lowered his head and said, "Then let us finish what we began." He opened communication lines to the Empire survivors, broadcasting a single message across every frequency. "This is Captain Reeve of the Terran Starborn fleet. The war is over. The Empire will withdraw from every occupied world or face extinction. There will be no slavery. No silence, no erasure. Those who live under the shadow of cruelty are under Terran protection from this day forward. Any who cry for help will be answered. You have seen what we are. Remember that, and choose peace." Across the galaxy, his words spread faster than the wreckage could cool. Some empires surrendered, others vanished into hiding. But everywhere the same message was repeated. The humans are back and they are watching. Haven 9 became a symbol of hope, its people rebuilding side by side with those they once feared. On the bridge of the Titan, Reeve stood alone, now the crew evacuated to safety. Mara gone to assist the wounded, Solace's lights dimming one by one. He placed his hand on the console, feeling the hum fade. The AI spoke one last time, asking, "Do you regret it?" he said. "Not a second of it," she said. Then we rest. The stars outside reflected against his eyes as the reactor finally went dark. The Titan drifted slowly into the light of Haven's sun. Her hull cracked open, but her insignia, still burning faintly in gold. The starborn flame still visible against the void in the years that followed the story spread through colonies and cities, whispered by children who never saw the war. They called it the day the deadliest beings in the galaxy remembered their promise, and across distant skies ships bearing the human mark began patrolling once more. Silent guardians of the weak each time a cry for help echoed in the dark. A voice always answered steady and calm. We are the Starborn, and we are listening. The galaxy healed slowly from the fire it had called upon itself. Fragments of Empire ships drifted like ancient bones across a sky now claimed by silence. Haven 9 rose from the ashes with fields of green rebuilt from soil still, warm from battle. Human engineers and alien hands worked side by side, lifting steel and planting seeds under a single banner that no longer spoke of fear, but of promise. The promise that no cry for help would ever go unheard again. The name Starborn became more than legend. It became a vow carried in every voice across the star's captain. Reeve was never seen again. Some said he died aboard the Titan when her light finally went out. Others said he lived hidden among the stars, watching from a ship. Without name, there were rumors of a lone vessel appearing at the edge of disaster zones, then vanishing. Before anyone could thank it, the people whispered that it was him, the man who would not rest until every soul was safe. Mara took command of the new Terran Council, guiding the scattered fleets into order. She made certain the old human code was restored not for war, but for memory, so that no one could ever erase the truth again. Deep beneath Haven's rebuilt surface stood a memorial, not of gold but of black stone, smooth and quiet, carved with no titles, only a single line carved in every known language. They heard the cry, and they answered. Beside it grew a small flower, the same kind Lyra had once carried from her lost world. No one planted it yet. Every year, it bloomed a little brighter, as if remembering her. The AI solace was gone, or so people thought. But on clear nights when the wind touched the upper towers of Haven 9, faint pulses could be heard across old frequencies, like a heartbeat still echoing from far away. The Empire's remnants scattered across the rim worlds. Some still swore vengeance, but most fell silent, their fleets broken, their spirit crushed by the memory of human fire. Merchants spoke of new trade, routes guarded by Terran cruisers that asked for no tribute. Only respect entire planets once enslaved by the Empire, declared freedom under the Starborn watch, and slowly fear turned into something the galaxy had not known in generations. Trust. Though peace returned, the legend of that night remained a warning and a hope. The day when the galaxy's deadliest beings remembered who they were and chose to protect rather than destroy children of 100 species, grew up reciting the oath, whispered by the humans. We stand for those who cannot stand. We fight for those who cannot fight, and we answer every cry for help in the farthest stretch of space where suns burn blue and lonely. A single light still moves through the dark. It is said that when distress calls echo across the void, a voice replies calm, strong, and certain. This is the Starborn. You are not alone. The stars remember their fire, the worlds remember their peace, and the silence between them carries one truth that echoes forever. Humanity was not lost, humanity was waiting, and when they returned, the galaxy trembled not from fear but from awe. The end.